on. Back here in Nigeria, 4 of the 223 schoolgirls missing following an attack and abduction by the Boko Haram sect at Government Secondary School in Chibok have reunited with their parents. The 4 of the 223 kidnapped have also been said to, of course, been escaped from the Boko Haram camp. And this brings to 57 the total number of those who have so far escaped from the grip of the sect. Commissioner of Education, Alhaji Musa Inuwa-Kobo, made this revelation while addressing the Presidential Fact-Finding Committee on Chibok attack in Maiduguri. He explained that the 4 girls were discovered after Governor Kashim Shettima directed the Ministry of Education to open a data page for families of the girls, which should include their names, their pictures, and their classes. The 4 girls are believed to be amongst those that escaped to the bush but were hidden by their parents. With this additional 4, the total of those still missing stands at 219. We're in Libya now, where the U.S. State Department has warned all American citizens to leave the country immediately. And that's because the situation in the country remains unpredictable and unstable. And on Tuesday, the U.S. said it was sending a warship carrying around 1,000 Marines to the region for any possible evacuation of American officials. Concern over the situation in Libya has increased after a renegade general launched an assault against Islamist militias in Benghazi. General Khalifa Haftar last week urged the judiciary to appoint a crisis government to oversee new elections after accusing Libya's leaders of fostering terrorism. Dozens of state bodies have pledged their support for General Haftar, but the government called his assault an attempted coup and ordered the arrest of those taking part. The U.S. decision comes amid ongoing controversy over a September 2012 attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, in which 4 Americans, including Ambassador Christopher Stevens, were killed. Now, Egyptians shifted voting to a day extra today so that more people can come out and vote in the country's presidential elections. That's because the last-minute decision came by the military-backed interim authorities who declared Tuesday a public holiday. It did, however, not encourage people to come out to cast their ballots. A low turnout, however, threatens to undermine the legitimacy of former military chief Abdul Fattah al-Sisi, who is expected to easily beat leftist candidate Hamdin Sabahi. The retired field marshal overthrew President Mohamed Morsi last July. He's since been locked in a battle with Mr. Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood, which has urged a boycott of what he calls the election of blood. Liberal and secular activists, including the April 6th youth movement, which was prominent in the 2011 revolution that ousted Hosni Mubarak, have also shunned the polls in protest at the curtailing civil rights. Let's get more on this now. Elizabeth Arrott, VOA correspondent in Cairo, joins me now via Skype. Elizabeth, good to see you again. I hope things have improved in Cairo. I can see there's still no power, but at least you do have some form of illumination. Let's talk about the elections. What really are the chances that former General Fattah al-Sisi will win? I mean, if they had to give a one-day holiday to make people come out and people did not come out, he's supposed to be the strongest challenger. What are his chances of winning this election?
Well, I think it's still guaranteed that he will win the election. The point for him, I believe, was that he wanted a really strong mandate, and he certainly seemed to have had one last summer when you mentioned he overthrew the last president. But that has waned somewhat. The crackdown on the Brotherhood, as you noted, also other pro-democracy groups have really kind of taken some of the bloom off the rose. And it really has been sort of desperate here the last couple of days. In addition to the holiday, the election officials had threatened fines for people who didn't come out to vote. And the pro-government media came and was very haranguing of non-voters, calling them traitors. All of this, I guess, in a bid perhaps to make sure that Sisi got more votes than Morsi did when he was elected, as he wanted to really show this strong legitimacy, and it doesn't seem to be coming through so far.
Yeah, I should think so. But you know, there are those, I've heard some comments from Egypt, people saying that this looks almost like Hosni Mubarak all over again. Remember, Hosni Mubarak was in the army, he overthrew the government and then came into power. Is that what you're also receiving? Is that some of the feelers you're getting?
Well, it's funny because the comparison is made on both sides. His critics will say things exactly like that. You know, we're seeing a sort of, they'll say it's a repressive state, a military police state that went on for decades prior to the revolution. Now, his supporters might say the same thing in some ways, that Egypt needs a strong man. It's been in such chaos the last 3 years that they look towards this familiar figure as someone who can maybe recreate and bring some sense of normalcy to a rather chaotic situation. But it does leave the events of the revolution pretty much up in you know, many people wondering, why did we go through all of that?
Yeah, and it's quite interesting because when Mohamed Morsi won the elections, it seemed quite legitimate to quite a number of us, those of us on the outside looking in. It seemed quite legitimate. General Al-Sisi winning the elections, how much stability would that really bring? Because this is still a military leader coming into power, taking over a civilian government.
Well, again, that was the tradition, you know, for many things. He has resigned his military post, so he comes in as a civilian, technically. Many people still, of course, see him as having the backing of the military and therefore the continued military influence in Egypt. There's such deep divisions that we mentioned, the Muslim Brotherhood, the pro-democracy forces, and now this growing group that have really emerged and I think have taken quite a few people by surprise in the last week, the disaffected. There's a new party that sort of jokingly called the Couch Party, who are just sitting it out, and they're not voting, and they're getting their voice heard by not participating. So he has a lot of challenges in addition to this dire economic situation. He's got real opponents and then these disaffected opponents, and it's going to be very hard to call on people to unite behind him when there's so obviously great divisions.
Yeah, Elizabeth, just before you go, just very quickly, what were the figures like, voter turnouts in today's election? Today's the last day of the presidential elections. What was it like at the polls? Did you see a greater number of people out, you know, following the threats and all of that of a fine and a public holiday yesterday and so on?
I mean, it was completely empty at the polls that I went to today. There's nobody. I mean, the people who probably wanted to vote voted. I mean, there were reports of people. I just was reading that, you know, four people saying, yes, I came to vote because I was worried about the fines. But the numbers evidently were not very high across the country today. So it doesn't seem to have changed the situation very much. It'll be interesting to see what the official results will be.
Thanks a lot, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Arrott, the VOA correspondent in Cairo. She's been monitoring what's been going on there, especially with the elections yesterday and on Monday, as well as today. We're taking you now to Britain, where a hill in the rural English county of Gloucestershire became a hive of activity on Monday when thousands of people gathered for the annual cheese rolling competition. This time, real cheese returned to the infamous race after being replaced by an imitation last year.
The event attracts thrill seekers who chase a wheel of double Gloucester cheese down a steep slope in 3 separate races, each with a winner and separate prize cheese. Local residents plan the unofficial competition every year since the official event was halted in 2010. Groups of people walk through woods and across fields to reach the remote site, now internationally popular after media attention from across the globe. The races pulled in veterans and newcomers, but 13-time champion Chris Anderson was unable to take part owing to a recent ankle injury, although he was still keen to offer a few words of advice.
To stay to the right hand side and just lean back and run as fast as you can. If you fall over, just let yourself go.
Dozens ran, jumped and tumbled downhill in a bid to catch up with the cheese wheel. 24-year-old Ryan Fairley was victorious in the second race, although he said he was not a huge fan of the fromage.
I don't like these. It ain't really my thing. I'd rather a beer, like, you know.
Then?
No, I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet.
Don't throw it in a bin.
No, I won't. I might auction it off at the pub.
All right. Sounds like a good